Oh, hey, how you doing? Hope you're doing well. We're gonna try something a little different today. I'm gonna try and catch this moment while I'm in it. It's been recurring feelings lately. I've been working through a lot, and rather than drowning out the negative, I've been sitting with it and facing it, and because the only way out is through. However, in the midst of it's been happening over the last week a lot, for various reasons, but I've been catching myself thinking about wanting to go pick up some dope. And when I say dope, that's a term for heroin, but which is now fentanyl, xylazine. Really dangerous, not good stuff that anybody should be playing with, especially in terms of street drugs. But I catch myself in these thought patterns, and I've gotten a lot better at when that happens, catching myself and being like, what is this? Where is this coming from? What part of me desires this? And when you start going over, you reverse engineer your own thought process, especially if you've been struggling with whatever addiction for however long. In my case, opiates have been a monkey on my back, a demon on my dangus since I was 15 or 16. I'm 34 now. It's not like I've been constantly every day using that time, but for a better part of that time. But I'm not giving into it, but it doesn't automatically just make it go away. But going over the thought process and asking yourself, why? What is this? Where is this coming from? At least for me, brings me through the thought process and the remembrance of all the times and time again of how doing that never leads to anything but hell in your heart. Turns heaven into hell real quick. And because it's been happening so frequently lately, you have to be on guard and you have to keep your defenses up. But all it takes is one moment of weakness to allow that in. And when I say allow that in, it's whatever piece of you, part of you that is feeling discontented or sad or depressed or unfulfilled, incomplete, whatever it is, that repressed aspect of you, that shadow aspect of you, allows a thought form that feeds off of that type of energy to sneak in. It's sneaking right through the front door because you give it the opportunity. But we don't need to keep doing this to ourselves. There's a lot of people who struggle with addiction that are just crappy people, and turn into addiction just makes them worse. But there's a lot of us addicts out here that, really just all we've often known is love and within ourselves and our hearts, and we try to project that, and we disappoint ourselves through having expectations of that being reciprocated in any given circumstances, whatever. Drop the expectations of everything, of other people. Just try not to have expectations. All the pain we experience is the result of our expectations. It's the river's nature to twist and turn. Because truly, even though I get overtaken and sometimes overwhelmed by these thoughts and start to humor it, no part of me wants to go back to that life. Because it is hell. People wonder if hell is, the afterlife is an actual place in the afterlife. It very well may be, but I can tell you this, that it is a state of being we can embody right here on earth within our own hearts. And ain't that something? Same with heaven too. because if one thing is true, the flip side is also true. All truths are but half truths. I don't want to use heroin, dope, fentanyl, xylazine, because these drugs are, especially these days, more so than ever, designed to unalive us. Excuse me, I'm trying to get this message out here, so I'm trying to, be mindful of my language. But I just, again, I've just, for whatever this meandering, rambling video goes, like, I want to catch myself in the moment while I'm not even feeling nearly as, like, torn or wrapped up as I was 6 minutes ago before I started this 555 when I just said that. So this talking helps, whether anybody listens or not. This helps me. And that is selfish. Part of discovering love within yourself and self-respect and value is rooted in selfishness, but that's not inherently a negative thing. We have this idea that being selfish is always a negative. It sure can be, but when you've lived a life of trying to please other people, just because that's, you have a big heart. A lot of us have huge hearts, and we don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to let other people down. We want to be able to show up, be reliable, be consistent in our character. But doing this at the expense of spreading ourselves thin and not acknowledging what we need to nourish our own soul with, leads time and time again to us being empty. And to fill that emptiness, we then turn to things that hurt us even worse, even though we've convinced ourselves through this demonic loop, this demonic repetitious Ouroboros cyclical cycle, that this is our medicine. We're doing something to help ourselves, because we just can't bear. When you spread yourselves so thin, there's nothing left of you. So when you get feeling like that, you get so desperate to feel alive or feel anything that you're willing to destroy yourself. And it's not even a conscious thing that, like, oh, I'm doing this to destroy myself. But through the process of catching these thoughts and these cyclical thought processes, and doing it time and time again, these last few years especially, you'll start to, at least this is for me. I shouldn't be speaking for anybody else. I try not to do that, but I think part of this process, there are going to be parallels amongst the people trying to work through this stuff. So amidst the process of catching those thoughts, and then questioning myself and figuring out where this is coming from and what in me wants this, you'll again quickly learn that there's no part of me that wants to do this very self-destructive thing that's almost that's ruined my life time and time again, has brought me to the other side, and thankfully I've been brought back time and time again by the grace of God and whatever protective angels, guardians, ancestral spirits, and energies that I've had with me since my first near-death experience at birth. Where was I going with that? It will lead you to, so the questioning, it starts at just the surface level of, like, oh, no, I don't want to do this because I know it's going to put me into this vicious cycle that could lead to my, passing. So ridiculous that you got to be mindful of the language. I probably already said something without even swearing that is going to get this, video pushed to the bottom of the algorithm. And I don't mean to say any of that is, like, the reason I do this is to get followers, subscribers, and notoriety. But these are the messages I want to share and to be able to get out there, because I know there's other people like me that will relate to this and hear at least one thing in here that might give them a glimmer of hope. So that questioning, the reverse engineering our critical thought process and analyzing ourselves starts on the surface, but then through this, it's a repetitive thing, because once you start doing that, you start to crack open a willingness to dive deep and dig into yourself to figure out why this thing that you know is horrible for you continuously pops up into your head. And for me, at one point, it led to me realizing that I was long doing it because I didn't think I deserved good things. I was punishing myself from the subliminal subconscious programming that's 11 been building to this moment from the moment of birth. Like, whether we realize it or not, like, everything we take in, like, our conscious mind only takes in such a fraction of all of the information we're taking in. Our subconscious mind, however, takes the rest in and records it all, and it becomes a part of us, and we don't even realize that most of the time. So everything that's happened in our life, every interaction, things we've done, things done to us, amount to the way we live our life and conduct ourselves. And so then you find yourself, a quarter century into your life again, however long it may be that you start doing these things. You then start to have to unravel, like, why do I feel I deserve to destroy myself like this? Why do I feel as though I hate myself and I deserve nothing better than this? Where is this coming from? And it's a lot of our, upbringing or family conditioning. For me, it was one of the things I discovered was there was this like self-sabotage mechanism that's still in me, that anytime I start to reach a point of like something maybe successful or surpassing where my parents may have gotten in life, there's a piece of me that feels like, oh, you don't deserve that. You don't get to experience that. That's not for you. So then I self-sabotage and convince myself I'm making myself feel good by destroying myself. Then it came to a certain point where I thought I had so much hate for myself that I didn't want to be alive, and that I didn't think I deserved to be alive. And I realized after so much self-analyzing and repeating this cycle over and over again, and multiple serious bouts, long periods of contemplating, taking one's life. And when you sit with that long enough and realize, like, I when you really get caught up in that and are really considering that, you go through all of the possibilities of ways you could do it, where you could do it. But then for me, it always came down to, well, I couldn't do that because, man, I don't, the person that would stumble upon finding me, putting that trauma onto them, man, that's horrible. Like, that person would never recover. So anytime I thought about taking my own life, I always found a reason that was actually rooted in love that I couldn't do that, even though I had this self-hatred for myself. The risk of somebody disrupting somebody else's psychological well-being was time and time again enough for me to not want to do that. So I realized amidst that and realizing I would never take my own life for various reasons, that I was using dope because it was one, and this is crazy, but this is the actual logic of how I would think, was the next best thing because I was too not cowardly to take my own life. I respect life so much, and I respect the creation and the creator so much that I just could never do that. But in using dope, it was almost like a little cop out, like, hey, if I push it far enough and just don't wake up one of these times, maybe it won't be my fault so much. So it was like a punishment of, because I was too afraid to do it myself, well, I'm going to walk around like a zombie on the brink of death all the time. And maybe one of these times I'll, eventually slip over to the other side. But even that, I thought about, like, oh, the person to find me. Like, if my landlord comes up and finds me, like, I couldn't do that to him. Like, that dude is, like, my landlord's my homie. More of a dad to me than my dad has ever been. It's very, very grateful to have the living situation and relationship dynamic with my landlord. He's a mentor to me, amongst other things. But I guess where I'm trying to go with this is, through years of doing that and the self-analyzing and the critical thinking and trying to dig to the root of these problems, I started to realize, I'm like, dude, the things that are stopping me from wanting to go through with this are rooted in love for other people. But why don't I have this love for myself, that I can acknowledge in myself that I have enough value in respect and love for myself that I know I don't deserve to be doing this. No, none of us deserve to hurt ourselves the way we do. And so then you really realize, okay, what is causing this? What happened in my life that has created this character and this mindset that is so just twisted, demented, delusional, sick? And you really start having to dig deep and unzip yourself. And in that process, you're going to likely unearth some very difficult things, very unpleasant, painful things that, catch-22, trying to heal yourself. In the process of healing yourself, you have to really dig deep and figure out the cause of this. Well, a lot of times it's some deeply rooted traumas that we might not even be aware of, that once you face these parts of yourself and learn, because a lot of these traumas that happen early in our life and we dissociate, we aren't even aware of. And becoming aware of them will break you, will break your heart, will break your soul. It kills you. But that can be that revelation of the cause of madness and chaos and self-destruction can be, that death is a new beginning. Like, yes, we perceive death as the end, but it's the chance to build anew. And this isn't stuff that happens overnight, but if you really become serious about wanting to save yourself, because you don't deserve what you've been doing to yourself and what you've let other people convince you that you are, man, I get so wrapped up in just talking in these. I sometimes forget where I'm going. I'll probably wrap this up in a moment, but talk about it. Let it out. Acknowledge it. Because keeping it in is like keeping a dirty little secret for yourself that will... It's its own energy. It's its own entity in a way. And if you don't deal with it, if you don't talk with it, if you don't befriend your demons and come to an agreement and an understanding of our shadows and how to shed light upon them, that energy will just continue to build its own identity within you. And it's a possession of sorts. And I've encountered a few people in my life, not many, where, because I like to believe that everyone has a chance of redeeming themselves, and there's no point of like someone losing touch with reality and themselves within addiction. I've long liked to think that there's not a point of no return, but I've met a couple people in my travels that have really made me look into their soul and just the soul of humanity and the adversary and the adversary's minions, and see that I do think there can be, unfortunately, a point of no return with some of these things if you allow yourself to become the slave to your shadows. This work is uncomfortable, it's scary, it's heart-wrenching. It will make you, it will break you. But again, killing off your old self, not physically, metaphorically, gives you an opportunity to build anew and find who you actually are. And with that, I am signing out.